Hello, welcome to Smokin with Swami. I'm Swami Chaitanya.
Nikki Lastreto, Tipu the Wonder Dog.
And a special guest, Wade Laughter, who was actually a guest of ours way back when in the early days. And he was at that point explaining to us how the strain Harlequin came to the sunny shores of California through his intervention. So before we get on to what you're up to these days, maybe you want to recap for people, because a lot of people know about CBD, but so on and so forth, Harlequin and that relationship.
Yeah, I was gifted some seeds. One of the members of my collective, a friend named Lars, brought seeds from Switzerland. And there were two different types of that cross. And one of them, the vitality of it impressed me right away. I was working indoors at that point and looking for new varieties for the work I was doing. And it was such a beautiful plant. And meantime, the patient group, the members of my collective, if you will, were they loved the smell of it. They loved the taste of it. I loved how it grew indoors. It was such a happy plant. But nobody was getting stoned.
Yeah, right.
And it was kind of a drag,
like that, right,
because...
yeah. But this is before there was much testing, right?
Well, yeah, no, it was right as Steep Hill first started doing business.
I see, yeah.
At first I'd heard of them. Harborside was asking for test results. They were doing that. Mm-hmm. And I was already trying to comply with the local regulated market in the Bay Area. So my stuff was going to dispensaries, what I had extra from the members group. But anyway, one of those folks said his shoulder, which opioids and all the things that he had tried to control tore it up playing football. He said, it's the damnedest thing. I don't get stoned, but my shoulder
Try
does.
this. This will help your shoulder. You just try this stuff.
My shoulder doesn't hurt.
Right.
And
It works.
So that was the strain that you gave him some from your collective.
Yeah. I named it. That's the one I named Harlequin. And the thing is, that was a cut-only strain for a number of years. It was from that original phenotype.
Cutting mean like cloning off a mother.
Clones.
Yeah. Okay.
The real work of Harlequin happened.
Yeah.
The real work of Harlequin happened about ensuring that those original mother plants and the stock from them was available for years in the Bay Area. At any number of dispensaries, you could find cuttings of a plant that pretty reliably, indoors or outdoors, would give you 2 to 3 times the amount of CBD to THC. Yeah. And the thing is, back in those days, we'd pretty much bred all the CBD out of the gene pool.
So Steep Hill was the first one to detect that then?
I took it to them and asked them to test it. They liked the other phenotype for its THC psychoactivity, but this one, they liked the smell and they liked the taste, but it didn't work for their testers for psychoactivity. And meantime, I said, well, will you test it and tell me what it is? And they tested it, and then they got real excited because I had live plants that had CBD in them.
Right.
I hadn't cut them down. I know you guys had CBD
we
plants
had
before
the second,
I did.
fourth, and fifth plants, but we didn't know which ones they were. Mm-hmm. But what we did is we went back and got seeds from the guy who I got the starts from, who was a local guy up here, who's since passed on. And he gave us, I grew all these and so on. I grew a bunch out. And he said, we never smoked that one because it didn't get us stoned, right? But I grew it out, and that became, one of them became Royal Purple, and the other became Ganjier, right?
Yeah, that's what I was remembering, Ganjier.
Yeah, and so they occasionally present CBD because it's not really a stabilized strain that way. I've bred it back to itself, so it's pretty consistent. But the Harlequin was the thing. So you kind of Johnny Appleseeded the Harlequin thing to various other indoor growers.
What was remarkable about it was a wonderful mother plant. It really lent itself to being crossed. Harley Sue comes to mind. Ringo.
Right.
Lawrence Ringo crossed his Sour Tsunami.
Oh, yeah. Blessing he passed on. Great contributor
wonderful
to the
man.
Genetic strains.
Yeah. Anyway, it turned out to be a wonderful mother plant. A number of folks have crossed it with other things. There's a breeder in Nevada County who's crossed it back on itself and is making some interesting things that he's calling Harlequin. But the original
Why did you call it Harlequin?
I don't know if you remember that story I told you about giving ground to plants indoors.
Oh, you have to listen to this because this is like
Right.
this is
This
off
is
the
where-
charts. This is this
This is
copper
definitely
wire,
a
right?
secret.
Well, I put a lot of effort into trying to figure out how to give plants indoor is really hard. I mean, and it's wrong. Excuse me. I'm just going to make a blunt statement. Indoor, the only reason to do indoor with cannabis is you have no other
That's
choice.
right. Then you do.
There's no other choice. That's the only. It's like growing corn indoors
Or a tomato.
or
yeah.
tomatoes.
Yeah.
It's outdoors. This is where that
It's a
plant
different.
came
It's a
from.
different creature when it's
And,
grown indoors.
Well, one of the things that shapes it is lighting and what kind of water you have access to and what sort of soil you
Right,
choose
yeah.
to work in and all of those things. The plants are doing the heavy lifting. They're making these compounds that we love so
Right,
much.
exactly.
They're doing the hard work.
Right.
Our job is to make it as simple for them as possible.
Right.
Make everything ideal.
Right.
And
So we've gotten to the place where we feed the soil,
yes.
right?
No, well,
And the soil feeds the plant.
outdoors is beautiful because you can really actually create soil and
Yes.
feed it
Yeah,
and
yeah.
take advantage of what nature gives you.
Right.
Indoors, you have to recreate nature. You have to do that all the way through.
Ain't
I,
easy.
and I finally got to a point with the plants I was working with where I'd done everything I knew to do about lighting and put some effort and money into that. Same with water, same with nutrients, same with soil,
Ventilation.
everything. Air, climate control, all of
Right,
that. You
right.
got to do it right if you're going to
Testing
do
the
it
pH
indoor.
every day and all that sort of
that.
stuff. Yeah, yeah.
Mhm. Meantime, I was still feeling like they weren't getting everything they needed. So I asked the plants. I meditate and sit with them and ask them what was going on. What
Right.
I said, you got the best lights, you got the best, everything is right, but it's not. What's going on? We're lonely. We're lonely.
Uh-huh.
And I thought about that, and I realized that they evolved in the ground.
Yeah.
Right, right.
And ground, electricians can tell you all about ground. It's in a
That's right.
specific electrical frequency. And meantime, I was working on tables so that I wasn't having to bend over. I was working on tables, and they were completely isolated from ground. So I
Right.
got ground with some wire and
Copper wire.
copper wire, Romex.
Yeah.
Put a grounding bar on a copper pipe that I knew was good to ground, and gave 4 plants out of 7, and they happened to be Harlequin actually,
see.
because that's where I was at.
We're
in the
talking
development.
alchemy here, dude. I want
Well,
to say.
that was the name of the other cultivar.
Okay.
The other phenotype was alchemy.
Oh, it had a
That's what I
THC?
called it. Yeah, because it was
Yeah,
pretty
right.
electric, but it was.
So
it,
what
it wasn't
Was it really different? the
alchemy.
growth?
Or
No, the
ground?
copper ground
the
in the
copper
plants.
ground. Oh, Nikki.
Indoors, mind you, yeah.
This is why I named it Harlequin. The 7 plants, there were 4 that got ground and 3 that didn't. Identical conditions. I like to experiment, And the 4, they stood out like a sore thumb. They were considerably bigger than the uniform canopy that I was working with usually.
yeah, uh-huh.
And they flowered. I used a period of darkness to trigger flowering quickly. And at 2 weeks, I was used to the indoor plants. For the most part, they would give you a pencil eraser-sized clump of flowers 2 weeks
Yeah.
into flowering. Harlequin, part of what got my attention right off the bat, the earliest cuts of it that I flowered, they were more the size of my little finger, double the size of a
yeah.
pencil eraser.
Yeah.
And the 4 that I gave ground, they were as big as my index fingernail at 2 weeks of flowering.
But see, these are plants that had come from Switzerland.
Yes,
And
yes.
high altitude,
Yes.
higher latitude.
Probably in the ground.
Well, they
Were
probably
from
did
the
not
ground?
have the ideal environment indoors that they didn't have what they wanted, where they came from.
Right.
But the vitality of Harlequin, again, that's what really blew me away. I was just stunned at how quickly it flowered, how abundantly it grew. It flowered at 8 weeks. The trichomes were abundant, milky, and some gone amber already.
So I'm still not
8
quite getting
weeks
the
into
Harlequin
flower.
connection. Why the Harlequin?
Those 4 plants, unlike the uniform green that you're used to, and I cut off nutrients late in their flowering so that they yellow out. But these had red and purple and green and violet. I mean, just all
They were
this
Harlequin
incredible
color, multicolored
Blessed
Harlequin.
be.
Yeah,
Harlequin
really.
is a character in the earliest known opera.
Yeah.
Is an
right.
Italian opera, and one of the characters is
Yeah.
the Harlequin. And his costume has all these colors. It's a
Yeah.
vest.
I
and he's
think
got
there's
the
a
wild
famous
hat.
Picasso painting of Harlequin
And,
or something
and
like
it
that.
sort of suggests the jokester, and
Right,
part of it
exactly.
was, again, I had this plant, and I had a lot of them at this point, 7 big ones ready for full flowering and mothers and all that, and meantime my patient group wasn't getting stoned. And then it turned out to be high in CBD,
Yeah,
and
right.
it turned out because there was so few live plant versions
Right,
of
right.
CBD plants, I thought this needs to be to as many people as possible.
Absolutely.
Yeah, right, exactly.
So for years, yeah,
Yeah, it wasn't
I didn't
available.
do
We
it.
bred it out.
Our good friend, I don't know if I could name him.
Okay.
Anyway,
So and
yeah,
so.
I'm not
We don't
comfortable
have
to
his
name him
permission.
because of the publicity. But,
Right, exactly.
But meantime, he did the heavy lifting for 6 years
Uh-huh.
in the Bay Area. You could go to Harborside, Elemental Wellness, or Spark and find cuttings of those original Harlequin moms.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah,
So
I
where does
see.
it take us to today?
House of Harlequin.
House of Harlequin, yeah. And because of local ordinance, and we could get into politics, but
Which you're very heavily into, I now know. Yes,
well,
yes. Okay, we'll pass on that.
local
yes.
ordinance at this moment still says that no cannabis business activity is allowed in the county. So I have a pre-existing business. It existed before that ordinance was enacted, and I never shut it down, but it's all now...
A non-cannabis business you're talking about.
no, any business activity associated with cannabis.
Oh, okay. So you do have a pre-something.
Yeah, well, I was...
Pre-existing condition is what it's called.
Well, I had a mutual benefits association, just like AAA,
Okay.
before they enacted this law, and I didn't discontinue it.
and this
I'm
was
paying
authorized by the
taxes and all
state
that.
law, the 215 and various other things. The Attorney
Yeah,
General's
under the
guidelines.
guidance of...
Right.
Yeah, I've tried for years to comply with the law.
Exactly.
I mean, you know, what laws we have, and man, there's a whole bunch of them coming that are not going to be fun. But in the same way that Harlequin was about seeing as many people get benefit, as if you will, from
Right.
cannabis, my work since then really, I've learned a lot about outdoor cultivation because I had to sort out how to do it indoors. Looking at what I have outdoors, I've realized that regenerative agriculture, to use a term, or permaculture design, or biodynamics.
I like living
or,
soil. I really like that
Elaine
term.
Ingham. Yes,
Yeah,
there's
yeah,
a
yeah.
there's a bunch of information becoming available, readily available online and whatnot. But what's really true for me is I just have spent, in the same way that I used to sit in my room, I now sit in my garden and ask the plants what's going on, what you need, what's
Right,
what's
exactly.
the, and I've really. I think for a variety of reasons, it's really important for farmers to learn how to create their own inputs on their property instead of importing things. When you
Yes.
look at the environmental impact associated with a bag of bat guano,
I know.
I mean, just you follow that chain of custody, if you will, back
Uh-huh.
to its
Yeah, yeah,
origins.
Yeah.
And I think market pressures are going to force us all to
Yeah.
become much more
Yeah.
realistic,
Yeah,
if
yeah,
you
for
will.
sure.
Right.
Prohibition has created this insane profit margin associated with cannabis.
Right,
and
right, right.
for me, the medicinal aspect, the real miracle of Harlequin, I mean, there's many miracles associated with it for me, but the big one for me was introducing me to people who actually need cannabis for their lives.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
to
mean, it's
survive.
not because it helps them feel good,
Yeah,
which
no.
is a great reason to use
yeah, it
cannabis.
is.
Hello.
Yeah.
I mean, I love your inspirational
Yeah.
approach to cannabis. I think of it also as ceremonial.
Right.
But the true medicinal needs, I've come to know many families who
Right, exactly. Yeah.
I think I have 50-some members of my Mutual Benefits Association that are active at the moment, and I think 3 or 4 of them actually smoke. virtually all of them use tinctures.
Isn't that what you primarily are preparing now with you source the cannabis for?
I don't really trim flowers.
Yeah.
We trim enough flowers to keep samples for people to see what the various cultivars that we're working with look like when they're finished, if you want to trim them. But for the most part, no, everything goes to the drying and curing process. And then once it's fully dried, it goes to various medicine makers. And quite a bit of my efforts these days have been with the Caladrius network. This little button that I'm wearing here. You can find it online, caladriusnetwork.org. Our mission statement is to provide education and cannabis therapies, if they're appropriate, for the families of catastrophically ill children at no cost to those families ever. Like that.
Yeah.
And the thing is, it's a miracle, man. The stuff that's happening. Epidermolysis bullosa is a condition where kids, and virtually none of them make it to adulthood because their skin sloughs off. And it like if you did like you just did on my hand with one of these kids, it forms a blister. And the skin sloughs off. It's as if they're every contact with things burns them.
So they can't be touched.
They can't be touched. So these kids end up swathed in bandages head to toe. And meantime, we make a cream that's specifically formulated to absorb into the skin readily. It's sterile. It's a 2-ounce jar of it for the milder versions of this condition has 2+ grams of high purity oil in it. And it's still, some of it's in the acid form, still some in the decarboxylated neutral form, but it is formulated with nothing to irritate the skin.
Right.
But meantime, we're actually Forrest Hurd is the young man who's started this and inspired me to basically do everything I know how to do to see him succeed, because that's his mission. And at the moment, I think at the last report I hear, we're working with 140 families.
Wow, that's great.
All of whom have children who catastrophically ill is a specific medical definition. It's a condition that's typically terminal, so to speak, and it does not respond to the medications we can offer.
Wow.
So you've worked with various people to develop this form. It's not just cannabis; it's other herbs and tincture.
Oh yeah, we like shea butter, for example,
see.
soaks into the skin pretty readily and is a good carrier oil for a topical. But quite a bit of, and the other thing that's the educational aspect of Caladrius has to do with educating the families about the different kinds of cannabis that are available, the different cannabinoid ratios, the importance of terpenes, and the importance of dosing. Being able to actually get access and on an ongoing basis. That's the other thing. Because of prohibition, even when these families find something that works for them, how can they assure an ongoing supply of it?
Right. And the other thing they need to know is it pesticide, fungicide free?
It's an essential part of the supply chain.
Yeah, absolutely, medicine or recreational too. It wants to be pure. It needs to be pure.
Well, under the coming laws in California, everything that's going to be in the regulated marketplace, as you know, has got to be tested. And they're looking for pesticides, and with good reason. You know, microbutanol showing up everywhere, and people aren't using it. But it's a residual in the soil. There's drift of pesticides being applied in agricultural areas all over California. It's insane how much we put out there.
Well, this is really important information, Wade, because I just realized there might be somebody watching that is in this situation that doesn't know about this. So show that button again or something. Caladrius.
Caladrius.
How do you spell that?
Caladrius. Caladrius. It's a Latin word. Caladrius is
but we can get a close up of that too.
And House of Harlequin's easy to find, and there's a link at houseofharlequin.org that will take you to Caladrius Network. Because, like I said, it's what I'm doing these days. This young man is really on to something. There's evidently 1 in 50,000 children born in America that have this condition. Some of them much worse than others. It's a lot. Meantime, we're helping. Forrest comes to the work because his son has Lennox-Gastaut syndrome, which is a particularly intractable form of epilepsy. When he was first diagnosed, this was a totally normal kid up to about the age of 5.
Mm-hmm.
And then he started having seizures. And once they sorted out what was going on, the doctors said, he might make it to 8, maybe 10, if you're lucky.
So,
We just celebrated his 10th birthday.
Right. And it's cannabis that's been...
I just heard this morning, I was talking to him, because he's here with us. Silas is, this morning, 3 weeks without a seizure.
Mm-hmm.
And this is
3
weeks without any seizures. The last bout of seizures that the family was dealing with were coming on because he was getting, his teeth are coming in. He's 10 years old, right? And evidently it's probably because the teeth are so close to the brain, and it's a neurological condition and pain. And anyway, nobody really understands. I don't. But what we do know is, at the moment, I don't know if this is revealing too much information, but Silas is on 45 milligrams of CBD and 25 milligrams of THC, and that's happening twice a day with supplement of tincture that's much smaller dose, like 5 milligrams. Of either CBD or THC together.
But because he's so sick, it just absorbs that. That might sound like a lot. Somebody would say 50 milligrams a day for a kid.
We have kids with the network that are using hundreds of milligrams of oils
So what
a
we're
day.
saying is, rather than get you stoned, it goes to work in the situation where it's demanded.
That's right.
And it's filling the whole body with these things. So we have to close this up, but what I want to say, this is the positive thing about all of this. It's like, we started as stoners, it's great. No, but this is really what it's about. That this medicine, it cures people, it alleviates pain. It's so important that this be available to people at prices that are reasonable and fair to the patient as well as to the grower, you see. And all of this is very important to get out. And Wade, you're just doing a tremendous job.
Yeah.
And,
Thanks.
Right back at you.
Let's just have it, for these kids and anyone else, for post-traumatic shock and all these things. Cannabis is the way to go. And it's the answer to the opioid problem right there. So let's just focus on that. Thank you very much for joining us, and see you later.
With Swami.
Smoking with
Peace and
Swami.
love.
Thanks, Wade. I love you,
Thank you,
brother.
Swami. Thanks for the invite. It's so
Okay,
lovely
we
to see
love
you
you.
guys.
Okay.